tuning in to Home and Hobbies today. I'm Ryan. I'm really excited about this video. We've been planning it out for a little while now, and I'm excited to share this hobby of mine with you. If you see that shelf behind me on the wall, Amy made a video of how to make that a couple weeks ago, so we'll link that video over here for you if you want to check that out. But today we are going to be making fall off the bone barbecue ribs, and I have spent a couple years tweaking the recipe a little bit to a point where I'm ready to share it, ready to walk you through how to make it. You can make it either in your oven, or if you have a smoker, even better, you can make it on that. Today we're going to be displaying how to do it on both. We'll make one in the oven and we'll make two in our master built electric smoker. To start out, we're going to go through the ingredient list. In total, this is going to take you about 5 to 6 hours to do, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. This is one of our staples with our friends, and we have had raving reviews of it. So let's go through the ingredient list. First off, if you're going to be smoking or barbecuing, it's probably good to get a good set of barbecue gloves so you can handle things that are 200 to 300 degrees that you can't just handle with your hands. So these are really handy. We'll link this down below the video if you want to get this set. But there's a lot of them out there, and you can find most of them on Amazon. Obviously, you're going to need to have your ribs. Today, we're going to be doing baby back ribs. This is just a package that we got from Costco yesterday. Meat prices are a little bit high, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. So as far as the ribs, you can do spare ribs or you can do baby back ribs the same way. I prefer baby back. It's a little bit less fat on baby back ribs than spare ribs, so I enjoy these a little bit more. When you are looking at buying ribs at a grocery store, as long as they're not expired, they're going to be fine. But one of the things you're going to want is you're going to want the ribs to actually be straight up and down, and you don't want them slanted. It's just going to make presentation cutting harder at the end of it. So that's the only thing I recommend, is finding the rib bones going straight up and down and not disjointed or parallel. So we have the ribs, and next we're going to talk about the spices that we're going to use on these ribs. I tend to go sweet barbecue rather than more like vinegar or heavy salt based, so I like more of that sweet flavor. So today we're going to be using 2 different dry rubs. Which you can get these, they're McCormick's. You can get these at most grocery stores. We got these at our local Giant. One is Applewood and one is sweet and smoky flavored. So again, these are going to be heavy in brown sugar, some garlic, some salt. They're going to bring out that sweetness within the ribs and the meat itself. For color, because you're going to want darker, a little bit cherry colored ribs to get that stereotypical ribs. I like actually one of the barbecue masters, pit masters that I followed for years is Malcolm Reed, and he has this company that is Killer Hog, and so I got some of his spices here. So we have the hot barbecue rub and we have the pork perfect rub. This is really going to bring out that red, cherry red color in it. So if you want to check out his website, we'll link it below the video as well. You can get these off of Amazon, and again, we'll link that below for you as well. And we'll go through the measurements and how to put this on. Besides that, there's a couple other things you're going to want. So if you're doing it in the oven, you will not be able to get that smoky flavor because you can't obviously put smoke within your house and handle that. It's still going to taste amazing. It's still going to be fall off the bone. But if you're using an electric smoker, a pellet smoker, an offset smoker, any of those, you're going to want some wood pellets or wood shavings. So we'll link what we have below. This is hickory. Today we're going to be using hickory and applewood to get that again, that sweet flavor to match our rubs. You're also going to need a couple other things. So we're going to use mustard as a binder, and don't worry if you don't like mustard. Not a big deal. You're not going to taste it at all. I'm actually not huge into mustard. You cannot taste it, so just trust me on that one. You're going to need to have some version of butter, whether it's stick butter, if it's a spray butter. Parquet butter works really well. I just don't have any on me right now. We're going to use honey. You can can just get your local honey or at the grocery store near you. We're going to use brown sugar. Again, you'll see a kind of a theme here with the barbecue that I like to smoke. It's going to have that sweeter spices, sweeter flavor out of it. Your favorite barbecue sauce, I tend to go, again, sweet, so a ketchup-based barbecue sauce rather than a vinegar-based barbecue sauce. This is just Sweet Baby Ray's. This is what I have on hand right now. You can use any barbecue sauce that you tend to like. The last thing you're gonna definitely want this is you're gonna want apple cider vinegar. This is going to help keep the ribs moist, and this is gonna bring out a little bit of that apple smoke flavor that we're gonna be using in our Masterbuilt smoker today. And the way that you're gonna wanna apply that is you need a spray bottle. So we'll link the spray bottle. I've gone through a couple of them. I went some cheaper ones, they kind of fell apart on me. So I like this glass one, it's easy to clean, and it has a good nozzle on the top that just does not fail. I've had this one for a couple years now and it seems to work well. So again, we'll link that. The very last thing you'll need is just foil, and at one point we're gonna wrap these ribs to make them not fall off the bone. So I'm excited to get into this video with you. We'll go step by step, and I promise if you just follow the timing, the temperature, these spices, they will turn out amazing. So let's get into the video today. I'm super stoked. So one thing that I like to do with the ribs off the bat, you'll see some people skip this step, is when you cut it out of the package, I like to rinse them under just cold water, just in case they came into contact with anything prior to packaging. So we'll pull out these ribs, rinse them with water, pat them dry, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is going to be a key step, and that's removing the membrane. Okay, so one of the most crucial steps to these ribs being fall off the bone is there's a membrane on the bottom of each rib that you have to remove. If you do not remove this, and if you skip this step, you will not get that fall off the bone. We'll show you at the end of this, but you'll literally be able to remove the bones without any meat left on the bones. They will be that tender. So this step is crucial. I highly encourage you not to skip it. All you have to do is you take one of the ribs, go to one side of it. You'll see the membrane runs across the bottom here. That's what we're going to be removing. Just take a spoon, a tablespoon that you have, and start scraping it near one side where that membrane is until you can get enough of it up for a handle. And I'll show you here in a second. So you'll see that I now have a small handle here of this membrane. So if you take a paper towel, a dry paper towel, and you just grip that membrane that you now have a small handle on, you'll be able to remove this entire membrane right off of it. So this is that membrane that's gonna prevent it from being that tender fall off the ribs. So we're gonna do that to all three of these, and then we'll move on to the next step of putting our rub on it. Okay, so we're gonna be using yellow mustard as a binder for our dry rub. You can use honey mustard, you can use yellow mustard. Even if there's enough moisture from rinsing your ribs, you can just use water as well. You will not taste this at all, so don't worry about the taste. This is just that binder. Okay, so you're gonna wanna start on the bottom side of the ribs, or the bone side as we would call it. You have the meat side and the bone side. The bone side is down here. The meat side is where you cannot see the bones from. Do a liberal amount of yellow mustard on the bottom. Use your hand, rub it in to the ribs. Again, this is just that binder. Make sure you rub it on the sides as well. We're gonna cover this with various dry rubs. So once you have it covered, I'm gonna start with a sweet and smoky dry rub from McCormick's and lightly coat the entire rib. Again, this is just the bottom side. I'm gonna follow that up with some of the apple wood. Again, this makes the apple smoke come out of it a little bit more. This is McCormick's as well. So go over the same side with some of this. Remember to get the outside where the bones come out. Lastly, we're gonna add a little bit of color and a little bit of heat with the Killer Hog's hot barbecue rub. So make sure you cover all the meat with this. We want to get good color all the way around. Now the bottom side is done. Just flip it over and do the same thing with this top side. Finished with all three of them. They all have the binder, they all have the dry rub on there. We're gonna move one of these to the oven and show you that cooking process. And we're gonna move both, the other two over to our Masterbuilt electric smoker. And it will take this exact same amount of time. We'll be on the same temperature, but let's go head over there and start the cooking process. So we're gonna take one of these ribs, put it in our oven. We have our oven set on 235 degrees right now. The key with any barbecue is long and slow cooking. Add some aluminum foil down on the oven rack just to help keep it a little bit cleaner because it is inside the house and I don't want to make Amy mad. So stick the one of these ribs inside of there, close it on up, and we'll see it in about 45 minutes. Let's go take the other two out to this smoker. Just like the oven, our smoker is going to be set on 235 to start as well. This is the electric Masterbuilt smoker. We've had this for about 5 or 6 years now. We'll link it down below. If you want a good smoker to start off with, just to kind of get your feet wet, electric is pretty easy. It's a lot simpler than doing an offset or a pellet smoker. It's also a cheaper price. Just keep in mind for these ribs, you can do it on both the oven or into the smoker. Close her up, and then let's add some wood to start that smoke flavoring too. So today we're going to be using some hickory and some applewood to bring out the sweetness. Hickory is going to be a little bit stronger, applewood's going to be a little bit that softer smoke flavor. So I'm going to go a little bit heavier on that apple smoke, but you can do a mix and combination as much as you want. Either way they're going to turn out good. I've made it with just hickory, I've made it with just applewood. We're going to do a combination today. So let's go ahead and put some of this in there and start that smoking process. Here on this Masterbuilt, you've got this little tray for your wood chips in. You can just put the wood chips in here, and then on the side of the smoker, you'll see a place you can insert this. And you just leave it just like this, and it'll start heating above that heating element, and the smoke will start coming out. You can see it's just starting to come out now already. Right out of the top. We're going to keep this vent all the way open. So right now the ribs are cooking and they're getting that smoke flavor inside of this. Inside the oven they're just cooking. The key part here is we want to keep the meat moist so it doesn't dry out. So in 45 minutes or so we're going to use some of that apple cider vinegar to start spraying onto the ribs to keep them moist during the cooking process. Remember, you want to cook a long time. During the smoking process here, the first 2 hours is where it's going to absorb that smoke flavor. After that, there's no more smoke flavor that you can add. It's just making them tender at that point. So stay tuned and let's do this together. So it's been about 45 minutes or so since we started the cooking process. We have apple cider vinegar inside of our spray bottle. At this point, we're going to want to spray about every 45 minutes for the first 2.5 hours. And this is again to keep the meat moist and keep it from drying out. The apple cider vinegar is actually going to help break down the meat a little bit too, the vinegar in this, so that it'll make it a little bit more tender as well. So let's go ahead and spray this. We'll do the same thing out on the smoker as well. It's looking really good so far. We've got good color on it, so we'll just spray it over the top. And we'll continue the cooking process at 235. So just like the oven, it's been about 45 minutes since we started this as well, so we're gonna spray some apple cider vinegar on top of this, keep those ribs moist, and let the smoke continue to absorb into those ribs and get that flavor going. So let's go ahead and open it up. Okay, so we just closed her back up, and we'll continue cooking at 235. I'm gonna go ahead and top off those wood chips so we can keep that flavor from the smoke absorbing into the ribs during this cooking process. Again, you have about 2.5 hours or so to get that smoke flavor in there, and after that, you cannot get the ribs to absorb any more smoke flavor. So this is the key time. You don't want that smoke to lapse. So let's go ahead and top it off. The ribs have been on for a total of 1.5 hours at this point. It's been 45 minutes since we sprayed it the last time, so we're at that time again to spray it again with the apple cider vinegar. This is the last time that we'll be spraying it, so we'll spray it on here. We'll leave them on for a total of another hour. So we're gonna leave them on 2.5 hours uncovered, and then we'll move to the covered portion at that. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray these, and we'll do the same to the ribs on the smoker. We're gonna spray the ribs out on the smoker again. They've been on for 1.5 hours. We'll leave them uncovered for about 2.5 hours total. This will be the last time that we spray it. It's been 2.5 hours. They are fully cooked. We've been able to form the outside bark to it, I believe. So let's check it out, because we're gonna start wrapping them and making them a little bit more tender before we eat them. So it's looking really, really good. Have to wait for the dog to stop drinking. Now we're moving on to the wrapping phase. So for this phase, there's a couple things you're gonna wanna know. We're gonna use brown sugar, butter. You can use, again, stick butter and just cut it into small tabs. We're gonna use a spray butter. You can also use parquet. The final ingredient, the third one you're gonna use here, is honey. At this point, you're also gonna wanna use a little bit of that barbecue sauce, but most of your barbecue sauce will be used at the end. This is just for a little bit of flavoring. How you wrap these ribs and what direction they go back on is very important. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll talk through it as we do it. So we have the ribs right now, meat side up, bone side down. This is how you're going to want to start, and it's just foil on the outside. When we wrap these things, it's gonna have moisture from the ribs, moisture from the butter, the honey, the brown sugar, and a little bit of barbecue sauce, and that's what's going to create that tenderness in the ribs. While it cooks in its own juices, it gets that fall off the bone type of feel to it. So let's start with some honey. Again, this is meat side up. So go honey all the way across. Grab about 1/2 cup of brown sugar, sprinkle it across. Last step is your butter. So that is the first side. We're going to flip it over and do the other side. And it's vital that you leave it facing rib side or bone side up. Remember that they are rib side up. That's vital. If you flip it the other way and you cook it during this wrapped phase with the meat side up, the bones will literally fall out and you will not have ribs anymore. So you need to keep the bone side facing up so that as it breaks down the meat and gets tender, the bones sink a little bit more into the meat. I learned that through trial and error. Okay, this is nice and tight. Again, rib side up. I'm sorry, bone side up. So we're gonna stick this back into the oven and we're gonna turn the oven to 255 to finish this. These will stay wrapped for about another 2.5 hours. So we're gonna put this back onto the smoker now that they're wrapped. Again, bone side up, and we're gonna turn the smoker up to about 255 degrees and let it sit here without having to do anything else for the next 2.5 hours. Remember that at this point, now that they're wrapped, they cannot absorb any more smoke flavor. No need to put more wood chips in. We are about done. They have been within the oven and on the smoker wrapped for 2 hours. So we're gonna pull them, and this next step is a little bit crucial. If you want that caramelized barbecue sauce on the outside, I've learned through doing this, again, many times wrong, is if you pull the ribs out and you open them up and you let them cool down for about 20 minutes or so before putting the barbecue sauce on, it will allow the barbecue sauce to stick instead of just sliding, melting off the side. So you'll get that better caramelization. So we're gonna pull the ribs, let them rest for about 20 minutes, put the barbecue sauce on, and then we'll put all the ribs back into the oven for about 30 minutes to let that barbecue sauce caramelize on the outside, so it's that sticky, kind of gooey barbecue outside that we're used to seeing on barbecue ribs. Okay, so we put the barbecue sauce on the ribs. We put them back into the oven to heat and caramelize that barbecue sauce for about 20 minutes or so. So now we're ready to pull them. We'll let them rest for about 5 minutes and then we'll be ready to eat them. Let's see how they look. These look like they turned out really well. Now, just a heads up, these are not competition barbecue ribs. You would not want them this tender. But as far as I'm concerned, almost the more tender, the better. So if you like them a little bit less tender than what this is, a little bit less fall off the bone, just end the wrapped cooking part about a half an hour earlier. So we did that for about 2 hours, just minus it down to about an hour and a half. So I'm excited to try these. Let's see how they taste.
Cheers.
Cheers. So we're gonna try the oven one first and see how that one tasted.
It literally falls right off the bone.
Really sweet. You can taste that like apple in it.
That's hard to beat.
It's a winner in my book. Let's see how the smoked one turned out. You can definitely taste a little bit of that smoke flavor in there that you miss out on the oven. But they're both really, really tender. They both have the same flavor profile, just minus the smoke.
I like how this one does have a little bit more crisp, but it's just a preference thing at that point. They both taste amazing.
Yeah, the smoke really helps build that bark on the outside where the oven, it's a little bit lacking there.
So good.
So tender, so moist, fall off the bone, you can see. And literally the bone slides right off of the meat. If you want to make, if you have leftovers and you want to make rib sandwiches, barbecue sandwiches, just get some fresh rolls, put them on a sandwich, it'll be delicious. You can also throw it on top of your salad as well. This is one of our staples, and I promise you if you try this, you're not going to be disappointed.
Enjoy.
Thanks for tuning in.